Powell,
I'm here.
Mrs. Wells,
I'm here.
Mrs. Murphy,
Here.
and Mrs. Price.
Here.
There are technological difficulties with Mr. Carney, and they're trying to get a hold of him, and we'll patch him in when we get a chance. Go ahead and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and freedom for all. Okay. Dr. Roth, district mission statement, please.
The mission of Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
Thank you very much. I assume we do not have any scheduled patron input.
On this platform, it's difficult to do.
Understand. And then we have the adoption of tonight's agenda. And we're going to pull off the consent register item 4.5, consideration of Panapoto proposal, if I probably butchered the name. And we're also going to pull off the, trying to find it now, item 10, consideration of Eastern Bus Service contract. Due to guidance coming down from the state, we've got to relook that particular thing.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as written, with the exception of removing 4.5 consideration of Panapoto proposal and item 9 with the Eastern Bus or 10 with the Eastern Bus Service.
Got a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we got a second from Mr. Goodman. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand. 6-0. All right, moving on to item number 2, consideration of 2020 and 2021 commercial property, general liability, school leaders, E&O insurance renewal. And would Mike Riley be doing this?
Yes, Beth and I have been in discussion with Mr. Riley over the last few weeks, finalizing this, and Mr. Riley is on to take the board through more information.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mike.
Okay, I thought I would kind of address the kind of the same story what I typically do, and that is kind of go through our process for the renewal. Once again, we are recommending renewal this year through Travelers Insurance for the bulk of the program. There are some miscellaneous coverages and different coverage lines with different carriers, but Travelers has been the primary carrier for the district for over 18 years. And they've been a relatively really good partner for the district. In times where it's been difficult out there, as we're experiencing right now in the commercial insurance marketplace, Travelers remains an option for Leavenworth School District, where they are not an option for other school districts at this time. They're not taking any additional new business. And that seems to be the case with a lot of different carriers out there right now. The challenge, as I always mention in the state of Kansas, is we have so few carriers willing to write coverage for school districts in our state, primarily because of our wind and hail and our large property values. That continues to be the case in the state of Kansas. Travelers being one of the main players for larger school districts. EMC Insurance is also another player for smaller districts. And we have several smaller districts insured with EMC throughout our book of business, and certainly throughout Leavenworth County. But again, with your size, and it really comes down to property values being close to $180 million, EMC is not an option at this point in time for the Leavenworth School District. So we are experiencing right now a really hard market when it comes to commercial insurance, and particularly on the property side of the business. As I mentioned, if you want to look at your proposal, I believe you all each have a proposal that Beth might have emailed. The summary of our property coverage is on page 5. And rough numbers, we're right at about $180 million of blanket building coverage. What that means is we have $180 million of coverage at every single location we have. We do that on a blanket basis to protect us from any kind of underinsurance in any one of our buildings. So we have that $180 million of coverage, and we have it broken out on every single location that we have by building. But we put that total limit out there for the buildings at about 180 million. And that has been updated from Travelers every couple of years in terms of cost of construction increases and things of the like. We also have about $23 million of contents coverage in all of our properties, and then some miscellaneous computer coverage of around $2 million. So we've got a large amount of property. So one of the things that we are experiencing this year is continued, I think, good underwriting from Travelers. However, they are taking a very hard stance when it comes to our deductible for wind and hail. In the past, and I'm going back now 10 years, that deductible used to be $1,000, then it jumped to 10, and then it went to 25, and we were at 50,000 prior to this. The main issue right now that we're experiencing is Travelers is making a hard stance for wind and hail deductible to be 2% of the value of any one building, or a minimum of $250,000. So playing that out, if we look at our largest property being the high school and the main building at the high school, we've got a $53 million building there. A 2% wind and hail deductible, if we were to get a large storm that would damage the roof, would be $1 million, $1,070,000. And that story continues at every major building we have. So if you're at Anthony or any of our elementary schools that are roughly 13 to 14 million, we're looking at $275,000 to $280,000 in deductible. And so what that really comes down to, in my opinion, is almost a self-insurance, if you will, of the roofs for wind and hail only when it comes to our property coverage at this point in time. When you look at a high school, Leavenworth High School, I can anticipate that roof probably costing somewhere between $800,000 and $1.4 million. So when you're looking at a $1.1 million deductible, it's almost you fully self-insuring that. It really is a 2% wind and hail deductible per occurrence. So it doesn't matter if 10 buildings are damaged or one building. We're going to take the value of that damaged building and take it times 2%, and that's your deductible for that particular cause of loss. So that is a huge change, and one that we spent some time talking to Mike and Beth about, and we actually went back to the marketplace. We've leaned on Travelers about as hard as we can, and they will not budge. To stay on any school property at all right now, they are a minimum 2% wind and hail deductible across the board on their book of business. So we did go out to the marketplace, though, and look for buy-down coverage, if you will, for that deductible. And this would be for a completely separate policy, completely separate of Travelers. It would be with a third-party carrier under the AIG umbrella of carriers, but it doesn't come cheap. And so just as an example, we've got, and I provided that to Beth. I think she sent it to you, but I'll walk you through it. I gave Beth and Mike about 4 different options for Leavenworth High School only. Then I did the Warren campus only, and then I did Leavenworth High School and Warren combined, and then I did a district-wide option. I kind of focused on the high school and Warren because they are in such close proximity together, and they are just 2 of our higher valued properties. One of those obviously is one of our older properties. Leavenworth High has some very old roof on it. And yet Warren is one of our newer properties and has a lot of new roof on it. So I thought the blend of those two would work well. But when we look at taking the deductible down from a 2% per occurrence deductible to either a $100,000 per occurrence deductible or a $250,000 per occurrence deductible, we're talking premium in the $170,000 to $200,000 range on an annual basis. So certainly, while I think you could probably pencil out maybe a decision that might make sense there, quite honestly, that recommendation is probably not coming from me. I thought those premiums were far too high to bridge the gap. When I looked at it on a district-wide basis, we were able to go out and get 3 different options. One of those options was $100,000 per occurrence, and that annual premium came in at $400,000. And keep in mind, your current premium for all your coverage for the property alone is $233,000. So when you're talking about a $400,000 additional property insurance bill just to buy down a deductible for those 2 perils doesn't make much sense. It goes to $275,000 if we buy it $100,000 per building, as opposed to per occurrence. It would be $100,000 per building. And then if we take the final option was just to go from 2% to 1% across the entire district, that's an additional $200,000 of premium. So while that option probably looked most attractive to me, not only from a premium standpoint, but I guess more importantly from an overall buy down perspective, not knowing where a storm's going to happen, obviously, we would be buying down the entire portfolio to 1% at about a $200,000 premium. But even still, I don't think that makes a lot of insurance sense at this stage of the game. Now, I also recognize that having a large deductible and the possibility of several large deductibles for our properties when it comes to wind and hail could be a significant financial risk to the district. Again, if you looked at our proximity of our locations being Warren, Leavenworth High School, you could certainly have upwards of $1.5 million to $1.8 million when it comes to deductible. If both of those buildings were to be completely destroyed, if those roofs were to be completely destroyed due to either windstorm or hail. We typically haven't seen that in our area, but of course, that is what's driving the property rates in and around Kansas and Missouri and the entire Midwest, quite frankly, when it comes to large property risk like this one. So, looking at the math, I don't know if I'm making one of those recommendations. Certainly something to talk about. But from a program perspective, that is the major change. Everything else with Travelers and all of our other ancillary carriers have come in relatively flat. We're seeing about a 4% increase across the board in premiums. And quite honestly, in the world that we're experiencing right now, that looks really good compared to our book of business. On average, we're delivering about 18% renewals, increases across the board for large property risk right now. So at 4%, I do think you're getting a little bit of premium credit, obviously, because of that deductible situation. But across the board, the rest of the program is actually running really well. And I don't see any major holes, as we've continued to talk about from a coverage standpoint in the program. But I wanted to take some time and answer any questions about the wind and hail deductible because it is such a large change and one that I figured there would be some concerns out there.
Does anybody on the board have a question they'd like to ask Mr. Riley?
I really don't have a question, but boy, insurances sure are sticking their hands over the fire nowadays. I mean, I saw it with my own homeowners happen a couple of years ago, but when you're looking at the amount of properties that we have here, that's quite a bite.
Yeah, and I think again, when you look across the board, the commercial property rate that we have for Leavenworth School District is at about 11.5-cent rate. That doesn't mean a lot to you all, I understand, but it's 11.5 cents per thousand when it comes to rating your property with an insurance carrier. On average, we have school districts in the 24, 22, 19-cent rate categories. And granted, some of those have smaller deductibles when it comes to wind and hail, just like you all have had, with the exception of this year going forward. But your overall rate at 11.5 cents, really, really competitive. But this darn deductible was just one change that travelers would not beg off of. To the extent the rest of the marketplace, I couldn't find even, a legitimate offer, in my opinion, to buy down that deductible. It kind of told me what was going on in and around the property market. When you're talking about just buying down two perils, 1%, and it's a $200,000 bill to do that. I thought it was kind of outrageous, quite frankly. So even though it's a major shock and a major change, I do anticipate, and I do still see your property rate and your property program being really competitive when I look around our book of business. I don't know if that helps any.
Just to let the board know that visiting with other colleagues out across the state, we've had some schools that were totally dropped from property and that was really struggling to get property insurance. Some received well above 50% increases with the same type of deductibles. And so just wanted you to know this isn't unique to Leavenworth by any means, as Mr. Riley said. And other school districts are facing some steeper climbs than us, actually.
One of the things one of the things we've always, been cautious about is keeping a good partner with our school district from an insurance carrier perspective. And I say that a lot when I'm in front of public entities, but, given that there are so few options anymore, when you have a partner with the strength of Travelers, with the fact that they've been with the district for as long as they have, I can tell you, if we were to make a snap decision and find a carrier that would write your property standalone and would do it for, let's just call it half the premium kind of thing, or save you $50,000 or something, going forward, Travelers would not be an option for you.
Right.
They would not and will not consider new business when it comes to public school entities at the present time. So, I look at insurance carriers as kind of the devil in the room, so to speak. But they have been really consistent across the board and have been a really solid partner for the district. And quite frankly, you all have been a very solid partners of them too. We haven't had a lot of major claims with Travelers over that period of time. So it's been a very good relationship. I'm hopeful that this kind of weans itself back over time. I'm hopeful that we're able to provide maybe a case going forward that they'll start releasing some of those decisions, as we continue to push them and talk about options going forward, or that there'll be other options in the marketplace that we can look at as far as buying down deductibles and still staying with a good quality carrier like Travelers.
And Mike, question that I have is if I could cut down to really the bottom line, is if we set the deductible aside for the wind and the hail, then what we're looking at for our insurance that we have to consider today is approximately a 4% increase over our previous rates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And my understanding, Mike, is that with this increase in the deduction, we're basically self-insuring our own roofs.
for those two perils of wind and hail.
They were covered, but
right. And I say that because quite honestly, I look at 2% of a building value, and that's, you know, for Henry Leavenworth, it's a $14 million building. That's $278,000. Certainly, I think we could see a roof, you know, being, you know, around $300,000 to $400,000 for a new building like that. If you're tearing off and replacing, right? Or I mean, I know it's not a typical residential roof like a tear off and replace, but they do sometimes have to deconstruct and then reconstruct. So it's almost, Doug, a self-insurance, if you will.
okay. I guess this is more for Beth for the edification of the board. Is the money there to allow us to do that in our contingency fund, as long as we understand that you can't double dip contingency fund money a whole lot? Is Beth on? I don't know.
Yes, she's on.
Yes, Doug, we do have the funds available
Okay.
for this change.
All right. I know we keep some money for that and for other things, but I think that's the only way to avoid, you know, just skyrocketing rates. And that's what I understood, Mr. Riley, what you had recommended, and talked to Dr. Roth and Beth. I understand that's what all three of you recommend. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is
Okay.
correct. And one thing, Mr. Darling, I just want to bring the board's attention to, and really they'll probably start seeing this across the state as budgets come in and other districts are seeing this same type of insurance problem, I guess you could say, is that people will start carrying higher amounts in their capital outlay to protect them against this. And so, you know, what our capital outlay with the bond and all that, we've built up in case there was any outlying circumstances that we needed to take care of in the bond. But as we spin that down, Beth and I have talked, you know, there's a kind of a floor that we would be willing to get to before we start really having to scale back on some things to make sure we're covered in case we would have a major storm come through. And that would be paid for out of our capital more so than our contingency, but contingency could be used for that.
I know my own roof went up like crazy. My insurance on my roof, when I had it replaced after that point, my insurance company kind of went, yeah, we want some more money out of you. So I kind of understand that part.
Doug, I've got a question, and maybe Mike can answer it. When we're considering what this might cost us to self-insure, I know we're talking about roof replacement, but if this incident occurred and it was covered by the insurance company, what would be the protocol for preserving the structure before the repairs are being made? Would the insurance company normally foot the bill, have a team come in, tarp over? You know, is that part? Because I think that's normally part of their protocol. So I guess my concern with this is if we're looking at the value that we're holding in reserve, this would also imply that we need to have a contract vehicle in place or some similar rapidly executable capability to preserve a structure. Say we had a wind damage, tornado damage, etc., that now is not going to be covered by the insurance company. Is that a correct statement?
So what I would encourage the district to do is operate as business as normal. You have wind and hail coverage. You just have a very large deductible. So in the event of a storm, we do the right thing always, which is to preserve the roof, preserve the building, right? Whatever Matt needs to do and his team, he does to make sure that we're preventing any future damage, helping secure the building, all those things. We automatically would want to turn the claim into Travelers, and Travelers would help subrogate that claim no different than, or adjudicate that claim no different than any other claim. They're just going to look back to you when they get the final bill, and they're going to say, okay, this was a wind and hail claim, and your deductible is X, and we're running with the balance of that claim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Matt has a good relationship with the local roofing company to be able to move rather quickly in any of these situations.
Well, I think if we get hit that badly, a whole lot of Leavenworth is going to be in the same situation.
Feel
Any
a lot of
further-
bake sales.
Thing else to add to this, and any advice, or are you comfortable with what we're doing?
Who are you directing that to, Danielle?
To Beth.
Okay.
Yes, I am comfortable with this. I know Matt, again, will storm comes through, he will do his best protecting the building so that we can get the claim going and get it repaired.
Any further discussion among the board? In that case, can we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve our insurance liability carrier with Travelers. I do not have the number in front of me. How much was that premium?
338,460.
$338,460. Thank you, Mr. Riley.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Goodman has seconded, I believe. Any further discussion? If not, raise your hand if you're in favor. We have 6. Mike, you're voting against it. Mr. Carney, I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted. Mr. Carney, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Can you hear me at all, Mr. Carney?
Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Did you vote in favor of it, or do I need to call for motions against?
Well, I'm sorry this whole thing got screwed up, but I just had one quick question. What was the figure for the last time that we did the insurance? What was the jump percentage wise?
4%.
4%.
4%. Last year was 325,664. This year is 338,460.
Well, I know it's a crappy comparison, but my homeowner's rate went up 25% and I never filed a claim. So sounds like a good deal to me.
Okay, so Mr. Kearney, are you in favor of the deal?
Yeah.
Okay, as I understand, that's a 7-0 vote on item number 2. In that case, we thank you for your time, Mr. Riley, tonight. Thank you for doing business with us.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Riley.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 3, the new baseball softball complex out at Warren. I believe Mr. Carney had the lead on that one. Or,
I thought Dr. Rose was going to present it.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
I got
You're-
some comments.
You're okay.
After the last board meeting and then dating back to when we started the discussion of giving the city David Brewer Park and us taking over the west side of that middle school complex, one of the ideas that was given to us and the board at that time wanted Mr. Carney to chair that. So he and I have been visiting with different companies and different concepts of what that field and area could look like out there. We have been in some good discussions with Kansas Turf, who is a very respected company in the sporting field. They do tracks and soccer fields and baseball fields and football fields, and they have a good product with a good warranty. They're local. They're out of Meriden, Kansas. We've done business with them before in previous projects and have had good work with or good relationship with them then as well. Our previous head football coach, Mark Littrell, is also part of their company. He goes out and sells and talks to schools, and he's an ambassador and a salesman for their product. And so there's a lot of local connection there, and we feel comfortable talking with them and recommending to the board that we continue conversation with them. Really, the options the board would have before them if they would want to have something done by March or this spring. We could do several things. It really is going to come down to what kind of budget would the board be comfortable with. And when we talk this through, it's not that you're making a final decision today. It's just that way we can work with them, and they could work with their architects and engineers and those types of entities to give us exactly what the board would envision for that area. When we first started talking, we could do we could do 4 competition fields out there. We can do 2 baseball competition fields and 2 softball competition fields. We could do a competition baseball field, a competition softball field, and then we could do 2 practice areas out there. We could do baseball, softball, and a soccer field. When talking with Kansas Turf and doing some preliminary discussion with them on what other projects have cost throughout the state or what they've done recently, if we're looking at turnkey. So there's a variety of options that we can consider just within the field. Let's just talk baseball and softball currently. So one of the things that we could do is we could do an all turf baseball field and an all turf softball field. We could do infield only turf and natural outfield in both of those scenarios. Softball is a little more difficult. If you're going to do any type of turf, it would be easier to do all of it turf because of square footage and how they have to do baseboards and the chances of, but it's still possible, and they've done that in the past. We could do an all natural second field in each of those and not have any turf on that. And with that, they would also take care of dugouts, lighting, fencing, all of that. And it would be like turnkey for them. They come in, they would hold the contract on all the architecture, all the engineer. They would hold the contract on all the warranty, the installation, everything. It's turnkey. We work with them. They come in and do it. The only thing that the board has talked about previously, and they could do this as well, but I think we have some options on that, not to necessarily have to have it done right away, but again, it's totally up to the board, is the concession stand restroom area. So when we look at the field, I already have that marked off of where, talking with Matt, where we would want that to be located to make sure we can utilize it with the football entry and middle school football activities out there as well. And so everything would be positioned around to where if we don't do it right away in the future, that building and that facility could be added. So with all of that being said, if you look at turnkey, where you have whatever decision we make, whether it's complete turf, partial turf, or whatever, what type of budgetary number would the board be willing to want to see what you could do for this X amount of dollars? So talking with if we just talk just the field, say we do an all turf baseball field and an all turf softball field, one each, regulation, full to the max, all of those types of things, with fencing, with dugouts, with all of that, we're in the neighborhood of about 1.2 to 1.5 million. If we do the other fields and add fencing and all of that piece of just natural, no turf out there, turnkey, because you have all the excavating work, you have all of those types of things going on, that would add up to probably right around the $2 million mark. I can't tell you exactly because one, we want to know kind of what we're comfortable with, so all this work don't go into it prior to. So what the idea would be is if the board would be comfortable discussing some type of budgetary number, then I could work with them, get it fine tuned, get the plans, get the details, and know exactly what this would be in August and present this to you in August. And all of this would need to be approved by September if we wanted to use it this spring, which they would have to get going. As soon as we would approve it, they would get everything going, and weather and all of that throughout could get it going for the spring season. All of those numbers that I gave you are without what Mr. Carney's been talking about is in-kind donations of people that are willing to do some of the work or do it at a discount, and he's been doing a great job on that piece and working through that. But he has also been in on the conversation with Kansas Turf and talking about some schematics and some ideas that way as well. Mr. Carney, you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, the main thing I want to add is it sounds like I haven't been doing anything, but I have. And the reason I can't go too far with my footwork is because of the time this whole thing, transpired. I didn't want to go out and get commitments from people a year ago when we weren't even sure we were going to get the field. But now that we got the field, it makes it a lot easier for me to go say, hey, will you sponsor a dugout? And they'll take care of the dugout. That's the kind of things I'm looking at. And that'll save us, some money, not a lot, but more than you might imagine. The other thing that's important, I think, I don't know if any of you have kids or grandkids, but there's about 60 kids playing around the state as the pioneers. And they're from ages 15 on down. So, I'm kind of thinking about the future with this thing as well, that they'll have something to look forward to and remain pioneers. But I think once we get a decent figure on the meat of the project, I still think that we can get money from the community for certain things like dugout sponsorship, helping with, different pieces of the work around it. Because the turf people said they didn't mind that, if I remember right, Mike, didn't they? As long as
Yes, they said they would work with local contractors and use expertise on and try to vet any volunteer that type of system, and would do whatever they can do to help shave dollars to expand the project. And so one of the things I visited with Miss Murphy and Mr. Darling about one of the things that we were able to do, and we shared this a little bit ago, we as a district have been able to look for ways with our capital projects to expand the capability of the district through your capital outlay fund to be able to do some projects. Right now, we have about $12 million in our capital outlay fund. So you would have the flexibility to do some of these types of projects and still continue to do all the things that we were able to do in the past and make sure we stay up on future needs as well. And so Beth has been a part of that conversation and looking at capital and projecting out. Matt's been a part of looking out 5 and 6 years on things, and he's given reports to the board to reflect that as well. Again, you're not making anything finalized. You're not really spending any money. The only thing that we've done up to this point is we've done some geotech work where we've tested the soil to make sure whatever we decide to do out there, whether we leave it where it's at, to make sure the soil is capable of doing whatever the board would choose to do.
Mike, I'd like to add one more comment real quick. And that's mainly for the new board members. I think the old board members remember that at one time in the history of all this capital outlay money, there's been a little push from certain people to try to take that money. So I think it would behoove us to utilize it when we can, so something like that doesn't happen. And I think it's just something to think about. especially when we got a pretty good fund of money.
Well, until there's a big storm coming through, which kind of concerns me with the insurance. What I want to question is, because to me, I don't see us doing it halfway. To me, if we're going to do it, I think we need to do it right and not piecemeal it all together. So if we go big or go home, we're looking at about $3.2 million if we were to do all the things.
No, I think if, honestly, I think you can get all of the fields and be extremely competitive and nice in the market with all of the fencing, all the lighting. I think you can do all of that for under 2 million or right at 2 million. And then I think that your concession stand area, I did a project similar to this about 7-8 years ago at my previous district. And that was about a $300,000 project, which with inflation and that type of deal, we're probably looking at the neighborhood of between 2 and 2.5.
Okay.
But I think 2.5 would, and again, until we get
That's
hard
not counting
numbers.
donors. Okay. Okay.
So that to me would get you a concession stand, fields, lighting, fencing. And if not, then the board can decide to scrap some of it, not do it. That's kind of where we're at.
So
Mrs. Wells had something to say.
I really think that at this time, we need to have a special board meeting just about this baseball softball complex. I feel like the only thing that we've discussed as a board was the land swap and the possibility of doing this. I appreciate all of the work that Dr. Roth and Mr. Carney have gone through to get the numbers and figures and estimates for us. But I really feel like we need to vet if this is necessary. I know that we need ownership, but our taxpayers have already paid for 20th Street. I still don't understand why we can't have ownership of that. We have one school district in the city of Leavenworth. Why can't that be ours? We've got our bowling team at the bowling alley. We've got our swimming team at the community center. We have a partnership with the city. I don't understand. So I really think we need more discussion at a special board meeting where it's just that we focus on.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle. Does anybody else? Okay, Mr. Powell wants to speak.
Yeah, I'm neutral at this point right now, other than I know that we've had some issues giving our kids that play this sport good opportunities. But I kind of track with Danielle. So I think what I would like to see as part of our assessment is the use case. Is it our teams? Or we have an expectation of sponsoring certain competitions? Do we open it up to teams like the Legion, which is also struggling getting games on our fields in the city? So I guess I'm kind of looking for a use case to go along with this, not just, hey, do we have 4 great fields? Do we have turf on it? So, and I don't think that's too much of a reach for us to be able to do that.
Okay. Dr. Roth, we have a special, I'm showing on my calendar a special meeting on the 27th. Is that correct?
Well, that was going to be the recommendation to use the 27th to talk about the education plan. The board, when we talked earlier, we moved the special meeting to the end of July or sometime in July to give us an opportunity to devise a plan and be able to present it to the board in a public session and that was the date that we feel comfortable being able to get to the board at that time. And so the 27th was for that, but we definitely could tag this to the backside of that because that would need to be the focus of the night is our education plan, but definitely we could tag this on the backside.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to say this one more time, and I think I'm right. I don't know. Maybe we got to dig up the minutes. But when we talked about this over a year ago on the land swap, it wasn't just to swap land. The intent was to build some ball diamonds there, make it part of the program, Pioneer program. So, I mean, I don't know where we're coming up with, and we didn't have much luck with the city, Danielle, I'm sorry. It didn't work. And I don't think we need that if we got this opportunity.
Mr. Carney, that is correct. When we floated this idea before the city, that was the idea for the opportunity to expand our ball fields on that land. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, catastrophe, I've always say what happens if there's a catastrophe. Well, if we have a catastrophe, our reserve fund ain't gonna make a difference, the hell of beans. But the thing is, like I said, I want to use the money that we have for something that is, to me, a need for the high school program. And there'll still be plenty left in cash reserve. And I didn't know if there was any excess, Mike, out of the bond issue was there. That
No, we couldn't use bond money
You
for
can
it.
use bond money for that.
So would, Dr. Oath, would it screw things up if we did tag it on to the 27th? Because that would, I agree with Mike, when we asked to go forward with that, we were going to plan to put ball fields there.
Yep.
That was the plan at the time. We've had an election since then. We do have some more new board members that need a chance to digest that thing, and we're not part of that decision making. So I'm thinking maybe a half hour on the 27th would be enough time to talk about it. Does
Yes,
that
and I
going
can
to
have-
screw anything up?
And I can have, we can have, and since it kind of won't have an exact time of what it will take us to get through the education plan, what I may do is have some representation from Kansas Turf, because they could get more specific and some different ideas, or actually answer questions probably better than myself. We can have them Zoom in or set up a Zoom link to where we could just call them and get them queued in a transition between the two meetings, if that would be okay.
Now, will that special meeting be long enough in the future that we could actually be in the conference room socially distanced like we had planned to do tonight?
As far as I know, as of right now, yes. But as with
Barring,
all of this, it's been very fluid, and information continues to change, and expectations continue to change on a regular basis.
okay.
But the plan would be to be, yes, to be in person. That's the best way to conduct the meeting, and being able to really deep dive into some things without any technical difficulties or those types of things. But it will be totally up to the health department and the guidelines that we would need to follow at that time.
Is that acceptable to the board as a whole?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
definitely the focus should be the school reopening and the educational plan. But yes, if there's still additional time, yeah.
Okay, so we're not really voting, but Mr. Powell, do you have a feeling one way or another? You're in favor of going? All right,
Yeah.
so I think we've got enough that we can, with the new board members, since we've been doing that, we can bring everybody on board and we can get a consensus. Even though that we're going to put fields, or what we're going to do with that, even though that was an action from the board meetings back prior to November of last year. It was about October, I think, Mike, Carney. I
September.
can't remember the
It
date.
was August to October, somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Every bit of October or even earlier.
Yeah. And you had been working on it a year prior to that, I think.
Yep.
So, okay, Dr. Roth, if you'd be so kind to knock it down to the 27th, and we'll just, punt until that point on item number 3.
Okay.
All right, if that's considered. All right, now, item number 4 is a consent agenda. We've got the check register, the minutes for our last meeting, consideration of furniture purchase for Leavenworth High School, consideration for our 4.1, consideration of furniture purchases, Warren Middle School. 4.5 on the written agenda has been moved to 5.1. and taken off the consent agenda. 4.6, consideration of paper bids. 4.7, consideration of quantum health professionals, special education services. 4.8, consideration of student handbook 2020, 2021. And I do want to thank the people who, I apologize, and I did not realize that was going in for publication. So I had been a little remiss in getting in my comments on the student handbook. 4.9, consideration of student substitute teacher handbook for 2020, 2021. And 4.10, consideration of thought exchange contract renewal.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been restated.
Second.
Okay, I think we had Mrs. Murphy did the motion, and I believe Mrs. Wells was first in with the second.
Did you have a question, John?
I do have a question. There was, on the consideration of the thought exchange contract renewal, we've got an option 1 and an option 2. Did we make a decision on which option we're taking?
Dr. Oath, you're muted.
Our recommendation, we showed both of them, and we are in a conversation with Thought Exchange, Jake and I, more Jake than myself. With our recommendation would naturally be in the most cost effective would be the year. And we showed the option 2 just as an option if the board had any.
So we're basically getting a better deal going with a longer subscription.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, good.
All right. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Raise a hand. Okay, so Mr. Curry, are you raising your hand or are you just scratching your? Okay.
My hand is pulling the COVID swab out of my nose right now. Yeah, my hand's up.
Okay, 7-0 then. All right, then we move to item 5.1, which is consideration of, and I apologize when I butcher the name of this thing, Panopoto proposal. Sorry.
Yes, it's Panopto, but close.
Panato. I hope your family is doing well. I'm sorry for your illness, Mrs. Batson.
We're good. Thank you very much. So Panopto is a lesson capture software system that works well with our Chromebook. One of the concerns that came out of our continuous learning, or our COVID quarter, as it's been referred to, that last quarter, is this idea of when teachers began to video lessons for instruction, they could either do the content or they could videotape themselves. And either way, something was missing, especially when you're looking at, for example, in your primary, when you're teaching mouth formation for phonics, and then you're needing the visual as well beside it, so they get the connection of the written letter, the sound, and the picture. So we started researching. We researched several different companies. Panopto is the one that made the most sense for our district. It works well with our Chromebooks. So if we have to go to a completely remote learning situation, teachers with their Chromebooks could still videotape where it would have the angle of the content, which would be on their Google slide presentation or their Pear Deck presentation, as well as their camera that would be videotaping them.
So, Ms. Batson, I appreciate all the additional information that you provided after when I asked for it. Will there be ample time to train the staff on this, or is there self-guided? How are they going to know how to use it?
Right. There's we're kind of coming at it from two different directions. One would be, yes, there is a self-directed, self-paced, on-demand version of these short videos that you could do that walks you through it. It's very user-friendly, and it's set up very similar to what they're used to in a Google, sharing Google files within that. We also, training comes with the proposal, and we have with our continuous learning leadership team. They will be ones that will be trained on it, as well as facilitators and anyone else that's interested in it to start with for kind of phase one.
One of the things We have the CARES dollars. That was the federal fund dollars to help with COVID and new programs. And so this would be a CARES dollar expense.
Okay, well, I can't see anybody.
And so that's where it would be.
And I just want to say, when I was trying to continue with my Revolutionary War program, I had the same thing that Mrs. Batson talked about. I could either be me with my uniform on and my flintlocks in my basement, or I could do the presentation. I couldn't do both. So I understand what I think Mrs. Batson was getting to. Any further discussion among the board?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the software that this is a slightly different question, but it's triggered by us trying to go to a higher order of means of giving instruction. Do we have anybody, or do we have structure now within our staff to help us start using this remote capability or other remote capabilities that teachers can lean on? I know we have teaching assistants, we have teaching aids and other systems that we use to help teachers in the classroom, but this is like a whole new world. So within our IT program, with our learning group that you have, do we have someone that the teachers is getting schooled on all this and the teachers can lean on?
And I will absolutely agree with you. This is a whole new world. I'll be the first to say me as well. Actually, our teachers are the best teachers of this to each other. The technology department and teaching and learning of course, work closely together. We've created videos. We've worked on kind of side by side or through Zoom, helping teachers set up their Google Classrooms, their Google Sites, their Pear Deck lessons, all those type of things. But really the teachers, as they find out things, are absolutely sharing. And that's true across the state as well, that between the social media groups and different functions, that they are absolutely, teachers as a whole across our state are banding together to help each other out.
So Ms. Batson, are there any platforms that we were currently using in this last quarter that we will be able to eliminate with this new technology?
Well, with platforms, this works within Google Classroom. Google Classroom is still our platform. This is just a lesson capture system that embeds within Google Classroom. You can embed it in Seesaw for the younger students, where they can just click on it and immediately through their single sign-on or through their Leavenworth Pioneers email will take them to their teacher's video in it. So as far as platforms, we're still using Google Classroom and Seesaw. This will be an option and a tool where teachers can immediately put that in there. One of the things that I really like about this program is it automatically transcribes it. So if you've got a student or a parent even that's like, I don't know how you do that with a radical or whatever, they could put in that word and it brings up in their teacher's videos exactly where the teacher says those words. So then they could just click on that one section, which was something different in Panopto than the others.
So in essence, this would also work if a child came down with COVID and wasn't able to attend class in the classroom. They could thereby still be on their computer and maybe not have that class, but 2-3 hours later, click that button and then they get that whole lecture, that whole transcribed document for the parents and the student to go over together, just as if the child had been in the classroom.
Absolutely. It can be
Excellent.
live streamed as well as it's being recorded. So the teacher can pre-record for a flipped type classroom if they want, or they can live stream and it can be recorded and uploaded into their Google Classroom afterwards.
Excellent. So it'll be a great tutoring asset or sick call asset. Very
Or
good.
when chickenpox comes around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Well,
whatever.
fortunately, that vaccine sort of works.
Yes.
So are we going to be requiring all of our staff to do that, to use this?
I predict that within the first quarter, we will have an overwhelming majority starting to use it. As far as requiring right now, we are working really, really hard to get teachers to put their best instruction forward. And of course, like everyone else in the world, everyone's a little antsy and a little apprehensive. So in that, we're going to use a lot of grace and a lot of support and a lot of encouragement with it.
Also, wouldn't this be a good asset too? Not that we would ever expect any child to act out, but this also could show us some trouble spots in the classroom that we may be able to give the teacher extra guidance for, to be able to help remedy some of those issues.
I don't think we would use it as far as a discipline tool.
No, but if you kind of have a teacher that's doing a lecture and you've got somebody constantly perhaps acting out or something.
I will
that
tell
it
you,
could-
video reflection is one of the most
Yes.
powerful tools in instruction. And I think teachers naturally, as they watch themselves on video, like all of us do, we improve our practice because we're seeing ourselves in actual time instead of the movie that we're playing in our head.
Heads, right.
Do you see this crossing over where we may actually do almost a team teaching, whereas we learn to use this tool, one instructor who has a specific skill set in an area like business, where this could be used to insert in other classroom environments? I mean, I can see several other uses. Again, we're in a brave new world, and there's no reason to limit this to just COVID, but leverage this for expanding all of our capacities.
I think the potential of this is limitless. Anything from, as been mentioned, I have a student who misses something, whether they're in the nurse or they're absent or they had to leave early for a sporting event or whatever. But also, if I know I'm a stronger teacher in this part of mathematics, middle school, and someone else is a stronger teacher in something else, us working together. So every student has the option to see it presented in multiple ways. I think the potential is there, yes.
All right, is there any further discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this Panopto. Did I get it right?
Close, Panopto.
Panopto
I second it.
proposal program.
Okay, we have a motion from Mrs. Murphy and a second from Mr. Powell. Any further discussion? If not, raise a hand. Mr. Carney, are you in favor? Raise a hand if you can hear me. You're silent. You're muted.
How about now?
Okay. Are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number, excuse me?
I was just telling Ms. Batson, thank you. I hope you feel better.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
I
good.
hope you and give Brian my regards too.
We're good. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 6, reorganization of board, election of officers. Do we have any nominations for the president of the Board of Education?
I would like to nominate Doug Darling for president.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Powell, did you have a nomination? You're
She beat me
muted.
to it.
Sorry,
Okay, well,
Mike.
thank you. Do we have any other nominations? All right. In that case, all those in favor of doing that, raise a hand. So, okay, I'll raise it to make it unanimous, 7-0. I want to thank you all for your continued support. I think there are 7 people on this board that can do or 6 other people on this board that can do just as good a job and are fully qualified. And, it's after this next year, I think it's time that some of you guys or gals get the opportunity to be with the gavel, much as my gavel is not really a gavel tonight. It's a flashlight. So,
Mr. Darling, can we clarify, did you give the second to that nomination
to Mr. Goodman.
Mr.
Mr.
Goodman?
Goodman. Mr. Powell was going to nominate me, but Mrs. Wells beat him to it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, as I understand it. All right. Now for item 6.3, election of the vice president of the Board of Education. Do we
I
have?
had a question real quick though. Didn't
Yeah.
we also pull off item 10 for the Easton bus service from the consent agenda
It was not on the consent agenda.
or
It's
the
item-
other agenda to put
It's on
in?
the regular agenda and we didn't get to that part. It was never on the consent agenda.
Okay, wouldn't that have been the next item after the Papato?
No, we're
No,
pulling it, we pulled it totally off.
Totally off. Okay,
Off,
thank you.
yes.
I'm just
No,
tracking my
It was
notes.
a separate item on the overall agenda, not on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking for a clarification though.
Thank you.
All right. Now nominations for Vice President of Board of Education, and I recognize Mrs. Price.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Danielle Wells for vice of the board.
Okay. We have Mr. Goodman as a second for that. Do we have any other
Oh, no.
nominations?
Sorry, I wasn't seconding that.
I'm sorry, you
apologize.
had your hand up. One of the problems with the Zoom, I apologize. Do we have a second for Mrs. Wells? At
I
all?
second.
Okay. Mr. Powell seconded. Do we have any other nominations for Vice President?
I nominate Miss Alyssa Murphy.
Okay, we got a nomination for Mrs. Murphy. Do we have a second for Mrs. Murphy? Okay. I'm all those in favor, pending any further discussion among board members? Okay. All those in favor of Mrs. Wells for Vice President, raise a hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, and I'll go 5. So all those opposed? Okay, it'll be 5-2 with counting the abstentions as a negative vote, as I understand we have to for abstentions. All right. Mrs. Wells, you are now the Vice President. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. Moving on, agenda item number 7. And Dr. Roth, I may need my copy of the agenda up here just has 7.1 appointments, designations. Is there something specific to that I don't show on my copy?
No, that's just kind of leading into
Okay.
7.2, 7.3.
All right, then going through, and we can do this as a whole item, so we don't have to vote on each sub item, but I need to read them off since this is not, we're not physically present with each other. 7.2, board clerk, recommendation is Beth Maddox. 7.3, assistant clerk, recommendation is Brenda Schumacher. 7.4, recommendation Christine Korth. 7.5, truancy, recommendation of principals and central assistant principals of our buildings. 7.6, hearing officer for free and reduced meals, Beth Maddox. 7.7, child nutrition representative, Cynthia Schrader. 7.8, Capers representative, recommendation Beth Maddox, Christine Korth, Darlene Krause, and Stephanie Hooper. 7.9, federal state grant representatives, Amy Sloan. 7.10, section 504 representative, Dr. Roth. 7.11, freedom of information freedom of information officer, Jake Potter. 7.12, name of depository for district funds. My agenda doesn't have a recommendation. Dr. Roth, do you have?
Yeah, it's all the local banks. So you got Bank Midwest, Commerce Bank, Exchange National Bank, Mutual Savings Association, Country Club Bank, Citizens Saving and Loan Association, Armed Force Bank, the Citizens National Bank, and State of Kansas Municipal Investment Pool.
Okay, thank you for those depository for district funds. 7.13, selection of official district newspaper, Leavenworth Times. 17.14, impact aid representative, Beth Maddox and Darlene Krause. 17.15, coordinator of homeless children duties, Amy Sloan. 17.16, attorney, Posinelli Law Firm, Kansas Association of School Boards. 7.17, transportation supervisor, Beth Maddox. 7.18, health, dental, and vision insurance broker. That would be, I assume, Riley. Is that, because I don't have it listed on my agenda.
It's
Yes.
listed Hayes Company.
Right.
What?
But
Hayes.
yes, for the insurance. and
I
dental,
apologize, but
Hayes.
the copy of the agenda I had didn't have it who it was supposed to be. So the Hayes. And then 719 property liability errors and omissions insurance broker. Then I assume that is Mike
Right.
Riley.
Yes, she just approved that.
Okay. And then 720 motion to approve all appointments and designations previously made by the board, our previous boards.
Mr.
Before that motion, can I just make some clarifications? Mr.
Yeah.
Darling, I think starting on 7.9, you went 17.9, 17.10.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You meant 7 point. I just
I
wanted
did
to clear that.
7.9, 7.10. Yes, this is all in section 7. I apologize. Reading is fundamental, and I obviously need to go back to first grade.
Mr.
So-
President, I'd like to approve the reorganization of the Board of Education appointment and designations from 7.1 to 7.20.
We have a motion to approve them. We have a second from Mrs. Wells. Any further discussion? If not, raise a hand. 7-0. Thank you. Okay, reorganization of the Board of Education, organizational procedures. 8.2, resolution 20/21-001, generally accepted accounting principles. 8.3, resolution 20/21-002 to rescind previous policy and adopt Board of Education manual for 2020 and 2021 year. 8.4, resolution 20/21-003 and 20/21-004, approval of petty cash funds. 8.5, resolution 20/21-005 to approve Board of Education meeting dates, times for 2020 and 2021. 8.6, resolution 20/21-009 through 20/21-013, approval to maintain activity funds. 8.7, resolution 20/21-014 to establish home rule. 8.6, approval of early payment of claims. 8.6, authorization of certificate for manual signature. 8.10, approval to publish notifications. 8.11, motion to approve all organizational procedures. Now, I have a question. I assume Beth will send us an electronic copy to sign. Is that correct, Dr. Roth?
We talked about that. We could do the electronic signature, but with the special board meeting on the 27th, it might be easier to have them all printed out and signed upon arrival there. If that would happen to get to be a virtual meeting, we will send that out prior to for signature so we can verify anybody that has not signed at that time.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification, Dr. Roth.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the reorganization of the Board Education organization procedures, 8.1 through 8.11.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Murphy, a second by Mrs. Wells. Any further discussion? Seeing none, raise your hand, please, if you're in favor. 7-0. All right, now the fun. Agenda item number 9, continuous learning plan.
Yes, I have a PowerPoint that I'll guide the board through. Basically, what we received the plan was over 1,000 pages last Thursday. We immediately looked at it from a standpoint once the state reviewed it with us with the cabinet. And then we brought in principals. We discussed it with principals today to start throwing out ideas and concepts. Ms. Batson's been meeting with the district team, getting and gathering information. So I have a PowerPoint with some slides to take you through the timeline of what we've done up to this point. And as you could see, this really started last spring. We've been meeting with the state regularly, weekly, sometimes multiple times during the week as things have changed. We are scheduled to do a deep dive with the KSD, Kansas State Education Department, next week. I've also met with the Leavenworth County superintendents last week, and we've got one scheduled for this Friday as well. As you can see, Ms. Batson's been leading the district leadership team through some different planning sessions as well, looking at the variety of categories there with teaching and learning. Human resources has played into this, facilities. Matt's been instrumental in this with his facilities, Brian with technology, Cynthia with child nutrition, Beth has been involved with this as well in her office, and then Jake with public relations. All of this is extremely important as we move forward. And so, again, you can see we've been working with and going through. So this has been continuous conversations with multiple groups in-house, as well as in the county and throughout the state. So there's been a lot of discussion with the reopening. What's that look like? Our hope is to continue to dissect what the state's plan, what they've sent to us, incorporate what we know our learners and our teachers would be able to do, and try to open up as close to regularly scheduled as we possibly can. And one of the things that as we go through this and the discussion has continually came up, there are zero guarantees of any of our buildings or any of our students or any of our employees not being exposed or possibly getting COVID-19. Our goal in all of this and working with the facilities and food prep and technology and all of the entities of the district is try to mitigate and limit those opportunities and keep it as safe as possible as we reopen. And we know there's going to be challenges. We've already seen challenges, but I really have faith in our admin team, and I have great faith in our teachers and support staff, and all the way through Matt's group. When we need a building clean or something touched, they do a fantastic job doing that. And so we're putting resources there, and we'll talk about some of those resources in a couple items later. But anyway, this just kind of gives you some timeline. Our goal is to share with the board on the 27th exactly where we're at, so we can start getting that out to parents and start communicating and being able to do that. As you see, there's going to be some surveys coming out. We're going to use what you approved tonight, and some of that is with thought exchange and try to get some deep dive into some of the responses and really try to focus in on the safety, but ultimately the reopening, because we believe, and I truly believe, our kids need the safest opportunity to be back in front of teachers as quickly as possible, but keeping all the CDC guidelines in mind with communication with Jamie Miller, our county health official. We're not doing this alone. This is happening statewide. It's happening nationally. You will see some plans already being shared out. There were some advantages of individuals being a part of the state's crew on being able to formulate and work with different groups with the different sections of that plan. And so you will see some plans. It's not a race. It doesn't do us any good to be first out. And it won't be harmful for the last out. What we want to do is be as thorough as we can, have as many discussions as we can, and put the safest, most the most opportunity for education to begin in a safe environment. And so there's a lot of work to be done. But I truly trust our admin, and I think the world of our teachers and support staff. And we're going to have challenges, no doubt, but together we'll do our best to put something great out there for kids, because that's what our kids deserve in this community.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roth. Did any of the board have any comments, questions? All right. Oh, Mr. Powell has.
I just want to make a comment. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but it was our districts and your leadership that pulled together the Leavenworth County superintendents into a meeting.
Yeah, we meet. We're as a group are pretty proactive, but I did reach out to all of the Leavenworth County soups prior to the release of that to start trying to work on some common language for all of our staff and our parents and our communities. Not that we'll follow the exact same plan through that, but some expectations with masks and some expectations with extracurricular activities, and talking through different scenarios and that type of thing. And so we've got a great group of superintendents in Leavenworth County. I learned a great deal from them each and every time we do meet, but we did meet at our district, and it was a pleasure to host those individuals on that day.
Well, I just want to recognize that you're reaching out to it. And I would just ask one more thing. And if there was anything that you took away from that you hadn't anticipated or hadn't seen in our own district.
No, actually, it was just the opposite, because a lot of times in these situations, you feel like you're out on an island and you're dealing with all this on a regular basis, and you're communicating with your own teams, and you feel like all of the challenges are only your challenges. But in conversation, from up on Post to Tonganoxie to Pleasant Ridge to Baser to Lansing, we all have similar challenges, and to be able to pull together discussion and ideas and thought processes was a true benefit to me.
All right. If you'd be so kind as to go off of screen share, Dr. Oath. And let me bring up my. Okay. We pulled agenda item 10, consideration of Eastern Bus Company service contract from the agenda for tonight, largely because with the 1,100 pages or stuff in there that wasn't considered as part of the contract. So moving on to agenda item 11, KASB policies update. There were 21, I believe, policies in that, Python lunch that was sent to us. And I know I've provided some comments on this. Is a first read this month. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Roth.
That's
and
correct.
We will second read in August. So if you have comments, questions on those policies, and since they're line in, line out, it's fairly easy to see what's changed, fortunately. Although some of them changed quite a bit. Feel free to provide those comments back to Dr. Roth. All right, moving on to agenda item 12, COVID-19 discussion.
So on that, again, going through the operations side of what the state released, but already trying to work with Matt and his crew and getting the feel of district admin the last several weeks, and just monitoring really what's going around nationally. There's two things that I would like the board to consider this evening, and it would be for discussion and then hopefully some type of action one way or the other. We are looking at two things. One, adding temperature scanners at all of our buildings. And the temperature scanners that we're researching and looking for are where they could do 50 people a second. And so it wouldn't interfere with the entry and slowing down that process, or so kids would come in doors normally or as normal as possible under circumstances. We don't want 50 kids walking in at one time, but there will be groups of people coming in on a limited basis, and they would be able to scan people as they're walking through. It would identify, send a text alert to our principal and nurse possibly, or we would group who those texts would go to. Then they could, like say Mike wrote, I showed that I had a fever of 101. They can come make sure, do an individual scan, and then start being able to scale back on, is it true that I have a fever? If it's a fever, let's look at this, let's look at this, let's be in contact with your parents, and let's follow all the health protocols at that point in time. That's the first wave of any restaurant. If you go to a gym, any of that, that's what people are used to. Other schools are doing that. I know that Lewisburg's doing that. Baser Linwood's looking at that. Other schools have talked about different variations of that. And so we could use the CARES dollars or the Spark dollars for that as well. But long term, it would still be, even in flu season or those types of things. We catch temperatures a lot later, and there's a lot more exposure to illnesses based on fevers and temperatures, more so than just on the COVID. So long term, we feel that this could be utilized long after we have a vaccination for our current circumstances. The other thing, and if Jacob will share the screen one more time, we're looking at masks. This is a different type of mask. One on the left, you will see the mask that we've already purchased. We'll give each staff member in the district, we'll give each staff member in our school district one of these masks. You can see that we've had it logoed with the LV, which makes it, to me, add a little more pride with what we do there. So each staff member will have that, but we'll also have the mask on the right. This is a shield that actually we were talking about, and there's, I always say happenstance happens for a reason sometimes. And actually Mr. Lunsford, who is working for Benedictine, was in our building, and he was like, here's what we're doing. And that was the perfect mask for what we've been really trying to talk about, because it protects from the bottom up as opposed from the top down. And so one, we believe it will be more comfortable for teachers and staff members that would choose to use this. It would give an opportunity for students to still see facial expressions of our teachers. Some teachers may use both, but this would meet the CDC guidelines as well. And we think that it would be more comfortable for staff members on that. One of the quotes that we had, so you just know what type of money we're dealing with, those shields, as you see them on your screen, those are, if we order 1,000 of them, those would be at $15 a piece. So it would be a $15,000 expenditure. Again, we have been looking for ways that we can accommodate our teachers' safety, but still allow some expression in teaching, some opportunities for students that may be hard of hearing to be able to continue to see the lips. But by no means are we going to not allow a teacher to use both if they choose to that, or any staff member for that matter. And so we would like to move forward on purchasing these protective face shields. The mask we already have on the left, that was just an image to show you the first kind of idea or defense that we'll have, and each staff member at USD 453 will be given one of those as well.
I have a question about the shields.
Okay.
I mean, I have a shield at home. Mine is from the top down, but do they have it to where you can buy replacement shields for like just a couple of dollars a piece?
Yes.
where they
can
snap back off or snap back on?
I don't know. It's like yes, they do have replacement parts, and yes, you can rebuy the shield. I don't know exactly right now if it's snap in, snap out, or what that would be, but I can't see it being too difficult.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing with this, for people with glasses, one of the complaints that we've had with staff members and in just personal experience as well, that when you're wearing a mask and you have glasses, it fogs up your glasses, and so this would also help with that as well.
Do you need a motion for the face shields?
No, not really. Don't need a motion, but if there's no extreme objection from the board, you will see the expense of this coming through. Even though I have the authority, the board's given us up to this is unique. This is unique, and I wanted to make you aware of it to make sure that there was no major objection to that. Now the temperature scanners, and Matt, I don't know if you could bring Matt on, Jake. The temperature, the original price that we're probably, those temperature scanners for each of those buildings, we're probably in the $200,000 plus mark for that. I don't know if we have the exact cost yet, Matt, do we, on that?
No, actually, I'm trying to schedule to get in and do a demonstration this week. But the cost I gave you, I believe the company I'm looking at now is a little bit less than that initial figure. So I'm hoping to get down there tomorrow or Wednesday, do a live demonstration. And I do have some pricing I can forward on to you. I just wanted to verify it before I sent it over to you.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll let Judy go first.
Sure. My question was going to be clarification on the source of funding for the thermometers and all of the masks. Does CARES, or what was the other one you called, SMART?
Spark.
All
Spark
of it,
is this. The Spark is the county dollars that I don't know if you had seen or follow in the paper. The county commissioners, they I think it's like 1.9 million they gave to the schools of Leavenworth County. It's based on each individual school's enrollment. So that would ours was based on 3,700 at $160 a student. So it's roughly just over $600,000 that is available, but it has to be spent on items related to COVID, things that you're changing. And so all of the things from what Laura presented with that program to cameras to this would be verified expenses for Spark or for the CARES dollars, but it's all federal dollars, just through different funnels.
Okay. Do we have a set amount for the CARES fund? The Spark is obviously set. Is the CARES the same sort of?
Yes, we do. And it was like, and Beth can correct me, but I believe it was like $840 for the CARES dollars. So we're looking at just over 1.4 million.
Okay, and that was per student essentially?
No, well, that was figured on a per student basis as well when they put that out, and the state sent us that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. While we're trying to be proactive with things and temperatures, has the district decided to try and maybe look into getting the UV light purification bulbs for the HVAC system, so when the air circulates through, it automatically kills the viruses, bacteria, molds,
So
just to help mitigate some of that?
Dr. Rose, if I can answer that.
Absolutely.
So our new building, the intermediate school, as well as the rooftop replacement at Warren Middle School, all of those units do include UV lighting systems. So that building is taken care of. Our other units would have to have retrofit pieces put into them. I have not got to that point of pricing it out. However, an easy first step was we did improve the filtration on our systems, our major systems. We put in a higher MERV rating with an antimicrobial filter. to just help out. So there's no claim kill rating, but it was an inexpensive kind of insurance
First step to control it.
Exactly. Now, I will say that the UV lighting will become expensive. They don't last very long, so you're changing bulbs about every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
2 to 3 years. At least here at the house, it's 2 to 3 years.
Correct.
But it works.
So they do have a place, and so we're just going to see, because it's new technology for us. We've tried it on one unit in the district, and we'll see how it goes, and keep that in our back pocket as an option to look at.
Right. I know the 10 years we've had ours here at the house, it's pretty much been a godsend when somebody's come home sick.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
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 I know several other things, like the scout camp is checking temperatures of everybody here daily. And same thing when I was volunteering at the World War I Museum, you got checked before you got let in the building, basically, do anything. So checking them as they come in is a good thing. Mr. Powell.
Yeah, two things. One of them is, Mike, we really haven't talked about if there's any unique SPED requirements here, because obviously that is a very one-on-one kind of a personal thing. So I'd like you to address that if there are any things we should be considering. And then the second is, we know that this is going to be a competitive development process in this year and the next year. This is not going to go away for things like traveling UV things to clear hallways, etc. So we're looking at these thermometers. Are we considering a leasing instead of a buying process, so that as the market matures and we can get better products, that we can introduce it without a large capital investment?
Don't believe I can speak for myself, and I've talked to a lot of people and a lot of other superintendents. I don't and haven't heard of any leasing opportunities for these temperature scanners. But long term, we believe, and we've had discussions internally, that we believe that they would be beneficial to fighting some of the other things that we incur during a school year that's not COVID related. And so meaning like when kids come to school with fever, or employees come to school with fevers and that type of deal, that we can really identify and have discussions with that at that point in time. And
yeah,
so,
no, I think there's value. I mean, that's already been proven in several different environments, going into hospitals and other places. I think I'm just looking down the road to, if there was a lease option, obviously if we're going to put UV lights into our duct system, HVAC system, that's embedded, but there might be other things that we could do. Maybe it's not even the scanners. It might be even other capabilities that we could lease to improve the environment we're trying to make here. I'm just offering that up as a thought. Maybe we can look at some lease options too for things that are way out of our price range.
right. And back to your first question, Dr. Roberger and Ms. Varvel from the SPED department have been in all of our conversations and monitoring anything that we do. They have a voice in it on the special education side. And so by any means, anything that we need to add or change, they are monitoring that and speaking on that behalf.
Okay, as far as getting the space shields, I think we have agreement among the board on that 15,000, which falls within your authority, Dr. Roth. But I don't think you're going to push back from anybody on that thing. But the temperature monitors would have to go out and actually come to the boards because of the price.
Right.
So,
and once we do that, if we get some prices back, Mr. Darling, we may add that as an action item at the very end. We'll follow up with some additional verbiage in a Friday review or something of what we found, to give you an opportunity to look at it. If there's any videos or anything, that will get the board advance notice on that as well, if we actually select something prior to that.
that is acceptable to the board?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Because as you know, all of this is going to be time sensitive with the start of school right around the corner.
All right. Moving on to your monthly report. item number 13.
On this, all I really have for the board this evening is just an update on construction. The intermediate school gym, we've been working on, or they've been working on that. That's scheduled to be complete at the end of next week. So in time for school to, basically done before school, and give opportunity for us to do any final touches in there. Matt's been working with the architect and the construction company on the punch list of that building. The inside is coming along very nicely. Weather on the sod that we talked about, we've had some internal discussions with Mr. Stoka. With the heat wave, we didn't want to put any of that sod down. So some of the outside punch lists will drag on a little bit until we get a total completion of the project. And you'll start getting some communication on that. The kitchen is ahead of schedule. Cynthia should be able to get in that no later than August 3rd. So we're good there. Equipment and stuff will be going in the next week or so. And so that's coming along. Middle school is, we have 2 of the pods that are done. They're finishing up on the 3rd pod. The only thing that will linger on that's been identified at this point in time is some of the windows, outside exchange of the windows. We were going to change out all the exterior windows. Glass is coming in a little slower than what we've anticipated. We're working on a schedule with Navholz to get those in on weekends or after hours, so we're not disrupting student learning or lots of noise during instructional time. All of Matt's units at the middle school, I believe, have now been changed out. So they're just commissioning those. The high school parking lot, we're still working through some scenarios with DLR and EMKC or MKEC with from our engineer on that. We found some schematics that didn't work well for us, and so we're working out some solutions to that. So the parking lot, the upper part of the parking lot will be ready for parking. It's the lower entry level into the parking lot that we're working on. The high school entryway, if you've been out, the secure entryway, the steel is up, and that's going fine. Lawson is moving along without any real challenges up to this point. And then the changeover at Henry, the sped room is complete there as well. So constructions, there's been a lot going on this summer. Lots of positive change and some great excitement. The only hope is that when August 17th rolls around, we're able to put students in the building and really see the excitement even expand there.
Do we have a
Okay,
date of,
thank you.
I'm sorry, do we have a date of completion for the secured entry?
The secured entry at the high school right now is the end of September.
Okay.
And that was actually moved up with them being able to start earlier because originally going into this, it was going to be the end of the first 9 weeks or mid to October. So we're anticipating sooner than the end of September, but that's when the completion date that Navholz has given us is September 30th.
All right. Moving on, item 14 then, unless there's any other questions by the board. Executive session for negotiations. I assume Amy's taking this, and how long we gonna need?
20 minutes. And I would like to invite in Robert's on. So Robert, but for transition, knowing if we have to extend or anything, would like to bring Mr. Potter in and Mr. Harrod in, because he has to monitor the phone call. So as far as making sure that the phone system works when you dial in. Mr. Potter did send out earlier today the phone number and the code to get into executive session. So does anybody need that resent to you at this time?
Might be a good idea.
All right, Mr. Carney, I will text you so you can have that.
He texted me the number?
I will text you right now.
Okay.
Anybody else?
And did
So
you
this would
need,
be a good time for a small break to
Yes.
get the transition.
did
and
you need
then
20 minutes plus 5 for the break?
That
I
would be
think that
great.
might be appropriate.
Dr. Roth, you'd want to invite Beth Maddox in as well.
Yes, and Beth as well. Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn into an executive session for negotiations according to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, COMA. We'll be inviting Robert, Amy, Jake Potter, Beth, and who was the other gentleman?
Brian Harris.
Robert, Robert, and Brian Herod.
Brian Harrod into the meeting.
Second.
All right. We've got a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Come back in 25 minutes.
Yep. At roughly 10 after, or 11 after 8.
So we're just gonna be on the phone, right?
Yes, only phone only.
Okay.
All right. That was an interesting experience. So we got Mike's not, Mr. Kearney is not yet back. So, all
There's a
right.
beautiful sunset though.
I know I'm looking at it out my front of my tent, which is why my picture gets screwed up every once in a while. I keep moving my camera so it doesn't get wound out by the sun. All right. Moving on to agenda item 15, executive session for non-elected personnel. And I think we need 10 minutes for this, don't we?
Yeah.
All right.
Mr.
We'll start
President,
with 10 minutes, yes.
I'd like to make a motion for us to adjourn into executive session for 10 minutes pursuant to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, COMA, and we will come back at 8:22.
Second.
We got a motion by Mrs. Murphy and a second by Mr. Goodman. All those in favor, raise a hand. 6-0. Mr. Carney appears to be out of communications right now. So we'll go ahead and drop off this and see you in the executive.
Jake, if you can hear me, the phone is just ringing.
I'm having the same problem.
I'll let Mr. Hare know. I would say just try again.
Hang up and try again.
Yes.
You got it. Same outcome, Jake.
Miss Wells, it seems like some people are having success, so you might just keep trying.
Okay. I was able to connect. Thank you.
Okay. Barring our technical difficulties, which always seem to be fun. We got 5 of us back, 6 of us back. We're missing Mrs. Murphy and Dr. Roth.
I'm back. My video is shut off. Miss Murphy said she was having trouble. Brenda, due to minutes, Miss Murphy was not able to attend that part of the executive session because she was not able to connect.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. We'll go from there. I understand the amount of time that this thing has taken too. So as long as the minutes reflect that, that's fine.
And she's having difficulty, Mr. Darling, getting in right now. I'm sending messages to Brian Herod.
Okay. Well, we're still in open session. We can wait for a couple of minutes for stuff to go through here before we move on to executive session action items, which is agenda item 16. Okay, we're missing her yet. If with the board's indulgence, I'll just say we'll temporarily jump over 16 to 17, and we've got community information. There's attached the Leavenworth City Commission meeting minutes and the Leavenworth County Commission minutes. The 18 is upcoming minutes date or meeting dates. The 27th, there'll be a special board meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in the boardroom and go from there.
Mr. Darling, can I ask
yeah.
for clarification on that? 6 o'clock start is the expectation?
Yes, 6 o'clock start. If that's okay with the rest of the board, since we always start at 6. I'll be coming from camp again, so when I come in and you need to sit down or upwind from me, please excuse me. All right. A lot of stuff going on now. I hope to heck we can have a convocation, because that's always a lot of fun to see everybody coming back after a break, and especially since they've been gone an extra 3 months for me. Mrs. Murphy back in yet? I don't see her. Can she be reached on a phone or?
I'll find out.
Okay. This is why in the Army, anytime a signal officer talked to me about assured communications, I wanted to go find a baseball bat.
Hey, Jake, we don't mean you, man.
Miss Murphy, are you Galaxy 8? I don't think she can communicate.
Previously, Dr. Rose, her computer was like front 296 or something or other.
Yeah.
I don't know if she switched. That's what we're trying to find out, because there's in the waiting area, I believe. Jake, you want to speak to this?
No.
No.
Yeah, we have an unknown name that I'm trying to make sure that we don't get zoomed on. Yeah, I don't have her.
All right. You could take the Galaxy. There you
All right. We still need to continue to railroad, unfortunately.
Well, there's
I
a,
can,
there's a front
let me call.
2566.
Where do you see that?
I see it on the attendees list.
That would be her.
That's what that was titled.
Ah, there she is.
There we
Ah, great.
Thank you for your patience. That was a little battle.
Okay, in your absence, we went ahead and covered item 17 and 18.1. Mrs. Murphy, I apologize, but just to try to fill the silence.
No, I appreciate you very much.
All right. So moving on, or back, I should say, to item 16, executive action or executive session action items.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our executive session items as they were presented in the executive session.
That would be the staffing report, correct?
Yes.
And the
Organizational chart, administrative staff, certified staff, and classified staff.
okay, and that also includes the pay pools of 3% for classified and administrative. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did I state that correctly, Dr. Roth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion from Mrs. Murphy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mrs. Wells. All those in favor, raise a hand. We have 7-0. Thank you very much for your assistance. Because of our format, unscheduled patron input, agenda item 18.2 is not capable of being happening. So we time for board member comments, and Mrs. Murphy, since you got to come on late, I will let you have first chance to make comments.
Oh, well, thank you. First off, I'd like to congratulate you on being reelected as the president of our school board, and also congratulate Danielle for being selected as our new vice president for this next term. I know you guys, we're all going to work together and do great things for this district as always. Next, I want to commend our culinary arts staff who has sat here and fed over 66,000, almost 66,700 meals throughout the community for our kids. Considering it's been a pandemic, it's been just a crazy time to have to live in, that they step forward and they've been able to do that, and they are still continuing to do that all the way up until school starts. Are they not, Dr. Roth?
We do have a cutoff date in July for some of our spots, and then I think it's the David Brewer. She's going to right around the 1st of August.
Right. So, I mean, we'll surely probably go beyond 70,000 meals. So it is a tremendous feat by everyone, and it's greatly appreciated throughout the entire community. I also want to congratulate all our coaches to still be able to get the kids out there to practice their skills, to get ready for sports as usual. And while they're keeping their bodies sharp and in tune, that's going to help keep their minds in tune to get ready to be back at the grindstone to start learning again, whether it's in the classroom or online, depending on what this may bring to us. And I also want to say to keep your eye out on the JROTC, because I saw them breaking ground on some more obstacle courses to train on. And I did get a message earlier today wanting to know if we're going to see their thank you video, but I haven't gotten to answer it back because being on Zoom, it wasn't able that we got to do it. So I'm sure that'll get rescheduled, but I know they were looking forward to telling us thank you. And, I'm looking forward to what the next year is going to bring us.
We will put the ROTC video out on social media. We did want to share it with the board this evening, but with all of the transitions that we didn't feel like getting that going would be right at this time, but we will get it out on social media.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Carney, our other one with technology. You're still muted. You're muted, Mike.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Can't hear you. Still can't hear you, Mike. Okay.
about
All right, now.
Yep, now we can hear you.
Gee whiz. I'm experiencing physical problems too. I apologize for everything, but I can't stop the bleeding from my simple COVID test today in my sinus cavity. So that's part of my problem tonight. It's kind of freaking me out. But I'm I'm going to write an article. I think I've been contemplating it for the last few days. I'm going to make it clear that I'm writing it as a community member, not a board member. But I don't know about you all, but I'm very upset with our county commission for not accepting the governor's mandate on the mask issue, and yet they require masks to come in the courthouse. So I don't get the logic there. But so I'm going to make it a point to maybe open their eyes about what the hell they're trying to say. But other than that, I don't have anything to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mr. Powell?
I really, the only thing I just want to add is I always like to take the opportunity to remind people just how much we appreciate the incredible effort that they're going through, not just over the last 3 months, but what's yet to come. So thank you all so much. I know it's hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Goodman?
Yeah, I want to reiterate the thanks that we have for our teachers. I know that a lot of them are still working over the summer, helping our kids. I know my daughter takes special advantage of being able to go into the weight room and work, and still having those opportunities. So I just want to thank all of our staff, admin staff, teachers, classified. All of them are doing a great job doing their little piece of the pie to keep our kids as normal as having a normal experience, school experience as possible. So I just want to extend that appreciation.
Mrs. Price?
I want to extend a thank you to all of our facilities and food service folks for keeping everything operating and serving our community. I know it's been a lot of work for the admin folks to dissect that 1,000 page plus guidance. I'm looking forward to hearing how we think we're going to move ahead. I've been asked by many what I think is going to happen, and I can't read that crystal ball yet. But I do appreciate all the efforts. I know nothing is easy, and every day brings a new variable and changes the variables. So I appreciate everyone's hard work, and I'm looking forward that whatever we can do to make it happen, education for all of our students, safe as possible, that's what really matters. And so I look forward to the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Wells?
All right. I definitely want to echo what everyone has said about the gratitude towards all of our administration and our staff that has worked tirelessly throughout this pandemic and what they're doing to try to figure out the plan for going forward, not having that crystal ball. Our families for chugging along with us. We don't know, just like you guys don't know, but we're getting plans together, and I believe in our administration that they're going to keep our kids as safe as we possibly can while still giving them everything that they need educationally. So I'm hopeful that the plans are going to come to fruition. I'm pleased that we're able to give those 3% increases today. I know it's not what they're worth, but every increase that we can give is something, and I'm proud to be able to be a part of that. Elisa, I greatly appreciate the time that you've been on the vice president, and thank you for thanking me. And I hope that I can read as well as you do. I have no confidence in that, and we're gonna try to work hard and figure stuff out. And thank you guys that did vote for me, that gave me this opportunity to learn more. That's what I'm here to do, is learn and help. And I appreciate everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I first want to thank the incredible support I got from everybody who voted for me to be reelected. As I said at the time, any of you can be, and several of you, like Mike Carney, has already been president. You can all do the job. And when, I will, if run, I will not, or if elected, I will not serve. I'll repeat that next year because my tour of duty will be over halfway through the year and somebody else needs to be around to take it all the way through. My wife is trying to convince me I need to go it again, but 16 years is enough, I think. But we'll see. She has a lot of influence. Mrs. Murphy, I want to thank you for the incredible support you've given me as a vice president. And it was made this job much, much easier by your support, and I really do appreciate it. Mrs. Wells, I've known you for a long time, and I'm convinced I'll get similar support out of you as I got from Mrs. Murphy. And we go from there. I want to just reiterate the stuff that the classified people in the district have been doing and the administrators. It is incredible. I got a little taste of what they're doing and Matt's folks are doing with the cleaning out here at camp because after every scout touches something on my station, I got to clean it. So sanitize it. So I think I understand a little bit better what they do and how those are the people that really make the things work. And once again, the administrators, I don't want to read 1,100 pages of education speak. Good luck to you all. I will probably try to download something on Wednesday when I'm off and not, having the fun of being looking for lost arrows in tick-filled woods at that point in time. So thanks again for all you do, all of us, and you for Leavenworth kids to make them, in fact, able to succeed in every classroom every day. And I thank you. And at that point, it's time to bring out the hammer and close the meeting.
Hey,
Thank
Elisa,
you.
this is Mike. I want to thank you so much for the warm welcome when we came on board.
Well, like I said, we're all in this together, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody have a good evening.
All right.
Yep.
Good night.
Gotta feed the mosquitoes. Talk to you later. Bye.
Stay well.